You have to look for problems in the world and say, how can I solve these problems? Anything that's new is going to gain traction. And that's how Fit Body Bootcamp, hit that Inc. 5000 list, Entrepreneur's fastest growing franchise list. And that's because we took a disaster and we said, where's the seeds of opportunity in this disaster? So if we know there's a market crash coming in 2025, and I hope there isn't, but if all signs are pointing to that, I'm going to preemptively start thinking, what can I do to leverage this market crash? That I'm a professional problem solver, and you have a problem, I can solve it. I have to figure it out and then how to get you to come in, stay, pay, and refer. And if I did that, then capitalism thrives.
Remember, adversity is your advantage.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the CEO Show with Bryce Henson. Happy New Year's, 2025 is here. New month, new year, be back in the studio to kick off 2025.
What's up, Brycey, and a happy new year to you as well.
Alrighty, well, continue on.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Well, it's 2025, and we're going to be talking about what the future looks like, right? And what opportunities lay ahead.
Yep.
And I think this is a great time to talk about it because let's be honest. We got past, 4 years of weird administration, and however you look at the current administration doesn't much matter because it's a new year, it's a clean slate, and you and I know that every decision you make determines the outcome that you have more than any decision that someone in the White House can make. So whether you're happy with the election decision or not that took place late last year doesn't much matter. What matters is we've got a clean slate ahead, and we're going to be talking about what the future brings and how you can take advantage of this new year where your business is concerned. So why don't we jump into that? One thing that I want to stress to the audience, because while people know what Fit Body Bootcamp is today, an international fitness franchise with hundreds of locations worldwide, what they might not know is that when I started Fit Body Bootcamp, it was on the heels of one of the greatest economic meltdowns of all time.
And I really am glad you're bringing this up and starting here because the last 4 years have been hard, have been challenging, right? Yeah. And, sometimes, we're getting inquiries like, these last 4 years have been tough, but what does, the future of 2025 look like? Yeah. So I think it's a perfect time for you to continue to drill that story of the challenging times of Fit Body Bootcamp. So continue on.
And most people don't know the origin story of Fit Body Bootcamp. And remember, in 2008, the housing market crashed, and that's when all of the big banks were going to the federal government looking for a bailout. People were losing their homes because of the option arm interest rates were doubling, and their mortgage rates were going up by 50%, 100%, 200%. And it was the greatest housing market disaster, economic disaster of all time. Unemployment rate was at double digits, 11, 12, 13% in some states. And there I am thinking, well, I think I'm going to launch Fit Body Bootcamp and make this thing like an international brand. Now,
what's going through your head, B? I mean, I want to stop there because, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Two things. One, I know that anytime there's a disaster, there's also somewhere within that disaster a seed of opportunity, right? And I think people need to understand and realize that. Whenever there's a disaster, there's a seed of opportunity. And I hate to use this one, but let's go even back further than the housing market crash in 2008. Let's look at 2001, September 11th. Up until then, we would naively walk through security. Your family can walk all the way to the gate with you and wave, "Goodbye, Bryce. Have a good airplane ride." You could have your pocket knife with you in your pocket, a lighter, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like no one really did anything in terms of security to secure, not realizing, wait a minute, these are big, giant missiles with wings that if any one of these passengers decide to commandeer the cockpit, this missile that has jet fuel in it and aims it at a building, this becomes a disaster. And at any given time, there's hundreds of these missiles flying through the air, right? Airplanes.
Yeah.
And so, but a very sad reminder that happened on 9/11 with those planes hitting the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the one crashing in the field in Pennsylvania reminded us that, oh my gosh, we had a very open security system and the cockpits need to be reinforced and those doors need to be reinforced. Air marshals need to be put in place. And so a disaster in 9/11 created the body scanners, created the TSA,
Yeah.
created new levels of those the X-ray machines, created the Clear system. That is a privately owned company that, if you can go to Clear or you can go TSA pre-check, right? Either way, you get kind of front of the line treatment. But created new ways of travel that created new economies and industries. That came out of a disaster. So in 2008, now let's fast forward to 2008, housing market crashes. I was a big believer in one-on-one personal training. I come from the one-on-one personal training world. I was coaching and consulting people that owned personal training gyms like I did. When I sold my 5 personal training locations, Premier Results, and got into coaching and consulting gym owners, if you had a one-on-one personal training gym, I was a business coach for you because I would teach you what I did to scale my businesses. Well, when the housing market crashed in 2008, all of my one-on-one personal training clients who did one-on-one personal training, they were like, man, I can't afford your services anymore. My clients are dropping out. They're not paying. Can't afford $600 to $800 a month for personal training. So they're dropping out with me. So I got to drop out with you. And I started thinking to myself, gosh, if I keep losing gym owners as clients, coaching clients, I'm going to have to go and live on my mom and dad's couch. And I don't want this. And so I said, all right, well, if people can't afford $600 to $800 a month for one-on-one personal training, to get fit, to eat right, to be held accountable, what can they afford? Well, they could probably still afford $200 a month, a fraction of that $600 to $800 a month. Mm-hmm. And I knew these outdoor boot camps were a thing, but they were always seen as like a redheaded stepchild in our industry, right? Like you're a personal trainer, you make most of your money from one-on-one personal training, but like on the weekends you run like an outdoor boot camp and you make a few extra $100 from that class that you run. And so I knew it was a thing, but I also knew like it's not weatherproof, so you can't run it in all states. If it's too cold, too dark, too wet, too rainy, sprinkler system, if there's, whatever, you don't have a park in your community to be able to run an outdoor boot camp in, like there's a lot of things that we're limiting. So what if I can bring this outdoor boot camp indoors, add equipment to it, create a system, and now we can do, instead of one-on-one, one-on-many. That's how Fit Body Bootcamp came to be. So an economic disaster helped me think up a business model by taking the outdoor illegitimate business model of boot camp workouts and turning it into an indoor systematized model. Mm-hmm. So a disaster turned into a gold mine for me. And yes, it was during the economic crash. So I knew that there's an opportunity for group training and we can now serve more people at a lower price point and still make a lot more money. So I knew that it had to be cost friendly and it had to be convenient. Like that model always works. No matter how bad the economy gets or how good the economy gets, if you can make it convenient and cost friendly, and by the way, this is why the Uber Eats and Grubhub and DoorDash work. It's convenient. And when the economy is good, people are willing to pay a little extra for DoorDash to deliver to their house, right? It's like, I don't have to leave my house. I can turn on my phone, order my food, and it'll come to me. Mm-hmm. Same with that shopping app that, does your grocery shopping for you, and then someone just comes and drops it off. You pay a little premium, but it's convenient, and as long as the cost is enough, or it's not going to pinch the wallet, you're going to be fine. And so I knew that that's the model I had to follow. It had to be cost-friendly, and it had to be convenient for people. And so the indoor boot camp was born. But I ran into a problem. The economy has crashed. So I'm like, how am I going to sell franchise locations? Well, I also knew that I can probably do some hard negotiating with landlords that we wanted to run these locations in, right? Because when the economy crashed, within the first year or two, a lot of small businesses went out of business. Mm-hmm. Remember, housing market crashed in 2008. I started Fit Body Bootcamp as a licensing program in 2010. We franchised in 2012. But I started in 2010 as a licensing program. So for those 2 years, from 2008 to 2010, there was a lot of new empty storefronts. And landlords were desperate to get those things filled. They were desperate to have people sign a 3 and 5 year lease. And so I knew that if you're willing to buy a Fit Body Bootcamp franchise from me or a licensing model from us at the time, I can help you negotiate 6, 7, 8, 9 months of free rent. And I can also get the landlord to probably pay for all, if not most, if not some of the build-out cost, because landlords were that desperate. There was a surplus in storefronts, right? So again, a disaster worked in my advantage. Not only could I create a new type of fitness program that's better accepted, of course, people wanted one-on-one personal training, but they're like, hey, my husband's income has been cut in half. My income's been cut in half. We can't afford one-on-one personal training. I still want some fitness coaching and nutrition coaching and accountability. So you know what? As much as I want one-on-one personal training, I'm going to have to settle with group and boot camp. Well, as it turns out, it wasn't even a trend. It stuck. People liked it because there's a community factor to Fit Body Bootcamp. There's a factor that we can adjust the workouts accordingly to everybody's needs and wants. So it's not like we're all using the same weight, going at the same speed. Yes, it's a 30-minute workout, but the way you work out in that 30 minutes is different than the coaches who are training me. So it kind of is personalized, actually. Totally. And I share that because, again, a disaster created a business opportunity for me, and a disaster created an opportunity for our franchisees to get into storefronts for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months of free rent and TI, tenant improvement, being paid for by the landlord. And of course, what we realized is, since we were first to market with a new product, new service, new business model, anything that's new is going to gain traction. And that's how Fit Body Bootcamp, hit that Inc. 5000 list, Entrepreneur's fastest growing franchise list. And that's because we took a disaster and we said, where's the seeds of opportunity in this disaster? So as the economy continues to slide in 2025, we shouldn't worry about, oh my God, what am I going to do? You just go, where are the seeds of opportunity in this disaster? And there's always opportunity if you look for it. And there's always misery if you look for that.
Amen to that. It just a classic example of my philosophy, turning adversity to your advantage. You've done that time and time again in your career, which is inspiring. I want to paint another example of this, and we're just talking about this offline recently about the project, which, end of last year, you retired after 20 classes. The mission to serve young men and men is still very strong. So I don't know if fully you can articulate the grand plan that you have, but I know, from conversation with you, you've taken an awesome program, but you're going to make some adjustments as well. And there wasn't a huge disaster that happened in Q4 of this past year, but it's an opportunity for you to continue to grow and add value. So I'd love to get a little bit insight there. And also, too, what are the lessons from the second pivot that you're about to explain that our audience can apply into their 2025?
Yeah. So what do I know about going into 2025? Well, we know that in 2024, the government lowered interest rates. We know that in 2020, the government printed 80% of the money that we have in circulation was printed in 2020. We also know that inflation and interest rates were through the roof and continue to be through the roof. So knowing that, we know that all those are indicators of a market crash coming, right? And so if we know there's a market crash coming in 2025, and I hope there isn't, but if all signs are pointing to that, I'm going to preemptively start thinking, what can I do to leverage this market crash? So since we retired the project, and the project, remember, was $18,000 for a 75-hour experience for men to go through this thing, right? So it definitely was not cheap. And every class sold out because we sold it to men who had the financial capacity to pay for it and got the value and the benefit from it. But I've also been tracking, and you also, again, you always have to be looking and listening and asking questions. And I'm watching different YouTube channels, and I'm talking to my son and daughter who are 17 and 19, and what's going on with your friends, and how's it going in their lives, and how resilient are they, and what's going on with Gen Z, right? And I'm seeing like Gen Z and these kids who are 18 to 28, right? Even the younger millennials are not hireable. Like, you're seeing stats. In fact, Pat David talked about this in a recent episode, like something like 90 some odd % of Gen Zers say that they're burnt out, stressed out, and overworked.
90%.
90% of Gen Z. These are young kids in their 20s, teens and 20s.
Man, that's just perspective.
And that's because they haven't dealt with hardship. They don't know what it is to deal with someone who's standing in line at Starbucks, dying to get their coffee, and so they might be a little snappy with you. And that Gen Zer on the other side of that cash register is like, oh my God, they were mean to me. I'm going to go make a TikTok video and cry. Like, baby girl, that's life.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to life.
Adversity's coming for you.
Right. Right. So knowing that, and as I'm talking to my kids and as I'm watching and seeing, and what I realized also with the project, the last 3 to 4 classes of the project, because we do 2 to 3 classes a year, the last 3 to 4 classes, we had more young men signing up for it. Normally, it's like dudes in their late 30s, 40s signing up for the project.
Yeah.
We had dudes in their 20s, early 20s. We even had one 19-year-old, Lucas Delvo, 19-year-old.
19 years old.
Our youngest graduate is 19. Our oldest graduate is 61. And but Lucas Delvo, 19, signs up, and that kind of, I was like, why is this young man here? And he was like, I just want to be able to test myself and be able to become a savage, because I realized my generation has not dealt with hardship. He was very kind of an old soul. I was like, whoa, dude, you speak a lot of brilliance, young man. Welcome to the project. But I've been seeing a lot of like 22, 23, 24-year-olds signing up to the project, and that's not how it was when we started it back in 2019. Mm-hmm. So I see that something's going on. They're aware. The kids in their early 20s are aware that they are not as resilient, as resourceful, and therefore there's not a big demand for them in the marketplace. They're not marketable. They're not for a spouse. They're not marketable for a job, a career, and they don't do well trying to start a business, because as soon as they start an Instagram account and a video doesn't do well, they shut it down and go to a safe room to panic. And that's not what life is. And so I was like, all right, with the economy crashing, with this new market space, these Gen Zers falling apart so quickly, and these young men needing resilience, and they're not getting it at home because 50% of the dads are not home because it's divorced. Of the other 50% that are home, half of them, those dads, are disconnected from their sons. They haven't been taught how to be modern day knights and how to be like masculine men who can be protectors, providers, savages, and servants. And so how are they
savages and servants?
Right?
That is the message, my friend.
To lead, to love.
Yeah.
Well, if they've never been taught that, how are they going to teach that? They can't. So I realized there's a marketplace, and as I was telling you and the guys at the mastermind a couple months ago, for this to happen, the price can't be $18,000. Not with the economy crashing, and not with me trying to help this new generation. Obviously, it's going to cost me money, so I can't do it for free, and I won't do it for free because they have to have skin in the game, and it needs to be a profitable venture for me, because I refuse to do anything that's not profitable. But not doing, people go, well, that's not generous. Hey, slow down. I donate millions of dollars to Shriners Children's Hospital, Toys for Tots, and Compassion International every year. Like, my money that's donated is my generosity.
Well, even on that, I mean, in this narrative that like capitalism is bad, profit is bad. Profit is efficiency. What I love about the capitalism system, why we are capitalists, you have to give value first and then you receive. This
Bingo.
is a voluntary exchange.
Right.
So even if you didn't do all the amazing things, you're still adding value to humanity, your clientele. So I just want to set the record straight there.
Yeah, well said. Very
Continue
well
on.
said.
Sorry, that rant.
Yeah, I love that passion you have. And so I realized, all right, this has to be a program that's sub $2,000. It's got to be a program that's sub $2,000. My market's going to be 18 to 28-year-old men in that decade. I need to teach them not only life skills, but also teach them physical toughness. Right? Yeah. So there's got to be some kind of combatives in there, some kind of physical hardship. So we'll take some of the best and hardest evolutions from the project and carry it over into this, whatever this new program is going to be. I haven't even thought of the name yet and haven't even created the model yet. And I decided, unlike the project, where the project has a bell to ring, like any given time, you're a grown-ass man, you paid $18,000, you know it's 75 hours, and you know exactly what you're going to go through, because we don't hide what we put them through in the marketing of it and with the social media posts that we put out. It is difficult. Hence
why some actually pay and don't even show, which is mind-boggling, but it also kind of goes to show they somehow put in, took one piece of action, but they didn't follow through on that.
That's a whole podcast in itself. Like people who maybe show up to the stadium but never get on the field to play the game, right? At least get on the field, take your licks, and maybe you'll walk away with a lesson, even if you lose, to make you better for the next time, right? Take your shot, exactly. And so that said, looking at the market space, looking at where the economy is headed, knowing that I don't want them to take the easy way out and ring the bell and quit. There's not going to be a ring the bell and quit. It's going to be like the Squire program. It's a given amount of time. I don't know if it'll be 12 hours or 24 hours, but you're going all the way through. You're going all the way. Now, I guess you can walk off and leave, and I'm not going to chase you down and stop you. You're a grown-ass adult. But there is no ring a bell and quit like the project, right? And I'm going to make sure that they go through, they learn people skills, everything from charisma to communication to having hard conversations to talking about the vices and addictions that they're dealing with. More pornography is at their fingertips. Pornography is at their fingertips. Weed is at their fingertips. Alcohol is at their fingertips. Social media doom scrolling is at their fingertips. This was not available to me when I was a young man in my 20s. These vices, I had to like find my dad's sock drawer, underneath it, find the VHS cassette of the little only porn movie that he had bought, and then he had watched it like 2/3 of the way through. So once I watched part of it, I would have to then rewind it to the exact spot. It was too much work to get caught and get slapped around by my dad, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and talk to girls. I'm going to try and get laid that way. It's going to be easier to talk to girls than tap into my dad's VHS cassette and then he find out that I moved the sock and found his cassette tape, right? And so, but today it's so easily accessible that, and they don't want these vices, yet they're addicted to it because they're designed to be addictive. Like there's literally study after study is showing that each time you scroll and scroll and scroll and search and you find it is what you're looking for and you hit play or you turn on the audio, you get a dopamine hit for doing no work. And each time you get a dopamine hit for not doing work, work becomes less attractive to you, which is why then when you go to work and you serve someone coffee and they go, that's delicious. Sorry I snapped at you earlier. That should be your dopamine hit. You get snapped at, you're like, oh my God, that person's a jerk. And then you reluctantly get their coffee and okay, you want a lid? You want cream in there? Okay, thank you. And they take a sip and maybe they come back later that afternoon and they go, you know what? I realized I snapped at you this morning. I'm sorry. You made a great coffee. Thank you so much. Here's a $1 tip. So that's earned dopamine hours later versus, rubbing one out to social media booty chicks or OnlyFans or pornography, etc. So all this to say, I know my market. I know where the economy is headed. I know what I want to charge. It has to be under $2,000 so they can afford it. There's not going to be a bell, so I'm not going to make it easy for them to quit. I want them to learn combatives. I want them to go through physical hardship. I want them to be yelled at and deal with what it feels like to have a real Navy SEAL leader yelling at you and demanding things of you, things that you need to do right now with those bags and those lumber and that tire and that sledgehammer, and if you don't, there's a consequence, and the consequence might be to hold a plank or go and do the ice bath or something, because these are things, and I believe in a 24-hour period, I can light a fire in a young man, and then with the follow-up that will come with that, a community that I want to create to follow up so they have a network. That's the other thing. The young men today don't have a network, a tribe, a brotherhood to belong to, so they're all lone wolves, and lone wolves die.
Yeah.
The wolf pack survives, but lone wolves die. And so like, this is how I go, so where's the problem? Where's the economy headed? If this group has the problem, the economy is headed that way. What is the economics of this group? Oh, they can't afford much. Okay, then I need to charge this. And and they're going to be easy to quit. So I can't give them an opportunity to quit. You have to look for problems in the world and say, how can I solve these problems? But when people go, this is all I'm good at. If I said all I'm good at is fitness franchising, well, if fitness franchising is all I'm good at, and right now the season's not good for fitness franchising, I'm kind of screwed, aren't I? Or if all I'm good at is creating supplement companies, and supplement companies right now are not thriving, then I'm screwed. But if I'm like, look, I'm an entrepreneur, and all that means is that I'm a professional problem solver, and you have a problem, I can solve it. I have to figure it out, what you can afford, where the economy is headed, how to market to get you to want it, and then how to get you to come in, stay, pay, and refer. And if I did that, then capitalism thrives.
Well, speaking of problems and solving them, which is what capitalism does, we have a major problem on our hands. 80% of our population is either statistically obese or overweight. So
Lord.
That's a self-leadership problem. And this isn't to cast stones, but it's to address a real problem, which is causing financial, medical issues, and just robbing people of their positivity and creating depression. So as we look towards 2025, we still always get questions, is boot camp a fad? And it's crazy to me because, our business here at Fit Body Bootcamp, we're in sustainable weight loss. Our message to the world is Fit Body Bootcamp is the place where our clients will lose weight for the last time. And there's a lot of weight to be lost. So from my perspective, as we enter in 2025, even though it's been a wild year or a wild few years, I would say, and there's going to be challenges, there's going to be adversity. The future is bright for us problem solvers in this particular industry, from my firm belief. Yeah. I would love to, pick your brain on what 2025 looks from your perspective in the fitness franchise or the fitness industry to kind of bring this conversation home.
Well, look, even before Fit Body Bootcamp was ever created, like even before I thought of Fit Body Bootcamp in 2009, 2010, fitness was always economy proof because whether you had a gym membership or you did some kind of jazzercise class or something, when the economy shifts in a negative way and people can't go on those vacations and they can't buy the lavish homes and lavish cars, they go, you know what? I could still have access to health and fitness that gives me a level of accountability and community, and I can feel good about it because it releases endorphins and dopamine. Like, it is the cheapest high and happiness you can have during a bad economy. And during great economies, you just have even more clients and customers. And so fitness has always improved since the beginning of time when gyms started to pop open. And remember, even big box gyms had group classes in there. They just didn't have the accountability factor, and they didn't have the fact that, like, if you don't show up to a cycle class at your big box gym, no one's calling you and saying, hey, you didn't show up and you're not achieving your goals, and let's track your macros. Like, we do that at Fit Body Bootcamp. And so no, one, it's not a fad. It's been proven over time. And Fit Body Bootcamp, which for that reason it continues to grow, and we help people massively lose weight and keep it off for good. Number one. Number two, as a society, we have to stop this whole body positivity bullshit movement.
Ooh.
We cannot go around saying it's okay to be fat. Now, we shouldn't go around fat shaming people, right?
Yeah,
if you're fat, you should know that you are unhealthy, you are diseased, it is not genetic, it is choices that you've made. Your genes might load the gun, but your habits and your actions pull the trigger. Like, I am genetically predisposed to heart disease and being fat because genetically it runs in my family. Like, everyone in my family is overweight and chunky, but they also make bad decisions in eating. I have chosen to take my genetics. My genetics have loaded the gun, but I'm not pulling the trigger because of my habits and my day-to-day actions.
50-year-old dude, man. Jack, lean, ripped, show the abs. Let's go.
Yeah. And so I say that because the more we make it okay to be body positive, that being obese, morbidly obese is okay, it's sexy, it's acceptable. Let's use it in marketing and advertising. Let's put it on the screen of, or on the cover of Sports Illustrated. All that's happening is people are getting sicker, more tired. They're costing us in tax dollars. Big government begins to tax us more because of the healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. As entrepreneurs, we end up funding all of that, right? And then pharmaceutical companies aren't saying, well, hey, let's teach you how to eat right and work out. They're saying, look, here's a new injection you can take. It's designed for diabetics. However, since you're obese and no one's teaching you how to eat right and no one's telling you that this is a byproduct of choices and actions, they're telling you that it's okay. We're going to give you diabetic medicine to lose the weight, but as soon as you get off of it, you've not only messed up your hormones, you're going to go right back to being fat again. We have to stop the body positivity movement and understand that you were not born with a natural built-in personal training certification. So you have to go to a Fit Body Bootcamp, sign up, get your workouts in, follow your macros. Your coaches will hold you accountable. You'll set your goals. You'll hit your measurable goals. And then when you hit your results, you'll maintain. And the beautiful thing about that is you will be a shining example to the people in your family and your community of what a healthy human is. And then before you know it, you're impacting and influencing their lives, and that feels good, and that builds your confidence even more. That is the movement of 2025 and beyond.
Heck yeah, man.
Right?
Heck yeah. So I'm going to ask for your final piece of parting wisdom for our audience to dominate this year ahead. For me, be every time that I look outward, right, I get anxiety and this, that, and the other. Anytime that I want to level up myself, I just look inward. I focus on my mindset. I get more dialed in. I focus on my nutrition. I get more lean. I get more ripped. I get more jacked. Good things happen. That's been a story of 2024. So for me, my advice to myself and my advice to you is take your fitness seriously. Mm-hmm. Get dialed in. Focus on your nutrition. Do hard things. Challenge yourself. And take big shots. You got one freaking spin on this globe. That's all you got. So that's my parting piece of wisdom for our audience as we kick off this 2025 on January 1. Bring us home with yours, B.
I'm going to make it real simple. It is everything you said is it. But the reality is someone listening to this right now is like, whoa, Bryce. It's easy for you to say with your tight physique and your athletic body and all this energy that you have. I don't have any of that. Where do I start with all that? Cool. I get it. Just dial in your diet. Just dial in your diet. And what does that mean? Figure out how much protein you need, which is probably going to be 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight that you want to keep. So if you're like 240 pounds and your goal is to be 180 pounds, take in 180 grams of protein a day, and then lower your carb and fat intake, and then just go to 2 workouts a week at your local Fit Body Bootcamp. 2 workouts a week at a local Fit Body Bootcamp and meet your protein requirements while just 20% reduction in fat and carbs. Those 2 things. Change nothing else. Change nothing else. Keep that negative mindset. Keep that shitty attitude. Keep drinking a lot of coffee as long as it's not laden with sugar. Because as you start losing weight and getting stronger and more fit, it will bleed into your attitude. And before you know it, you have no choice but to develop a positive mindset, greater emotional discipline, more energy. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm just like Bryce. And that's how you become like Bryce. And that's a good thing to do.
Well, I appreciate that, my friend, and I appreciate you. Friends, I know you got a lot of value from this episode. My one ask is share this episode podcast with someone who wants to dominate their 2025 just like you do. And remember, adversity is your advantage. We'll see you in the next episode, and Happy New Year.